everyone. Ready to explore the worlds of habits? We're going deep on what we talked about in the Creative Mind podcast episode. Like, did you know that a ton of what you do every day, like almost half, isn't even a conscious decision?
Yeah, it's crazy.
It is. And it's all because of these things called habits. And you know what's really cool? Once you get the science behind them, you can actually use habits to really make some progress on any goal you have.
You're right. It's pretty remarkable how much we're just on autopilot. And the exciting part is, instead of being controlled by our habits, we can learn to take control and use them to design our lives for the better.
Okay, so let's break this whole habit thing down. The Creative Mind podcast used this cool analogy of a habit loop. The cue, the routine, and then the reward. What's a good example of that?
Let's see. Think about how you react when you're stressed out. The stress is the cue, right? So maybe you reach for a chocolate bar, that's the routine. And then, well, at least for a little while, you feel a bit calmer. That's the reward. But then over time, your brain starts to link stress with chocolate. And that's when it becomes a habit. You don't even have to think about it. You just go for the candy.
So our brains just want shortcuts.
Exactly.
And habits are like the best efficiency hack. But good habits are great, but bad habits, not so much. And I know you mentioned the basal ganglia earlier. What's that all about?
Well, think of the basal ganglia as your brain's autopilot. It kicks in when you're in habit mode, which gives your conscious mind a break. It makes sense. Back in the day, you didn't want to overthink things if a saber-toothed tiger was chasing you.
Right. No time for deep thinking then.
Exactly. But here's the thing. That same autopilot makes breaking a bad habit so hard. It's like an uphill battle. It's because your brain's decision-making part is basically taking a back seat.
So resisting isn't just a lack of willpower. It's our brains working against us. And then there's dopamine, the feel-good chemical. I know I've definitely experienced the addictive side of dopamine.
Oh yeah, dopamine is powerful stuff. Remember that good feeling you get after finishing a goal? That's dopamine at work. But it also reinforces habits, especially ones with instant gratification, like scrolling on social media. Those quick hits of dopamine just keep you going back.
It's true. It's like social media is made to tap into our brains. So how do we use this knowledge to break free from bad habits?
Well, we don't always have to ditch the reward. It's more about being strategic. If you're trying to quit junk food, focus on the long-term reward. Better health, more energy, rather than that quick sugar rush. It's like retraining your brain to connect feeling good with a different reward.
Playing the long game.
Exactly. And here's the cool part. We can use that same dopamine-driven reward system to build good habits. If we make those good behaviors rewarding, our brains want to do them more.
That's awesome news. So breaking bad habits and building good ones is more about our brains than willpower.
You got it. It's like a secret weapon. It's like Serena Williams. Her success isn't just talent, it's disciplined routines. Even when she's not playing, she knows consistency is key.
That's powerful. Small, everyday habits can really add up over time. If Serena Williams does it, maybe we should too.
Absolutely. And they even talked about Elon Musk. He structures his entire day into 5-minute blocks.
5 minutes? Wow, I can barely choose what to eat in that time.
Right. But it shows that no matter who you are or what you're trying to achieve, good habits can help you get there.
They really can. Okay, so we've seen how good habits help us, but what about those bad habits?
Time for strategy.
Let's do it. Where do we begin? I remember they talked about identifying triggers.
Right.
Yeah.
Figure out those cues that start the habit loop. Is it stress, boredom, loneliness?
Yeah.
Even a certain time of day.
Like detective work.
Exactly.
So then what?
Well, instead of ditching the reward entirely, we swap the bad routine for something healthier. So instead of chips when you're stressed, maybe you take a walk, listen to music, call a friend.
So it's about finding new routines that meet the same need, but in a good way. We have to remember this takes time, right? Bad habits don't just vanish overnight.
You're right. And there's a lot of wrong info out there. Like that thing about 66 days to form a habit. Well, it really depends on the person. Some are faster, some take longer. The key is consistency and patience.
No magic numbers, just putting in the work and celebrating the small wins along the way. Which brings us to building new habits.
You got it. Ready to get strategic?
Absolutely. Tell me everything.
One of the best things I learned was habit stacking, using your existing habits to make new ones stick. Welcome back to our deep dive into habits. Last time, we talked about all that science behind them, the habit loop, dopamine, and how to break bad habits and make new ones. Ready for more?
For sure. I'm ready to learn how to use all of this to actually make changes, especially that habit stacking thing. That sounded really interesting.
Oh yeah, habit stacking is great, and it's really simple. It's about using a habit you already have to help a new one stick. Since you're already doing that first habit all the time, it's like a trigger for the new behavior. Your brain's already on autopilot for that first action, so adding something new is way easier.
Okay, I think I get it, but do you have some real-life examples?
Let's say you want to meditate every day but can never find the time. Well, instead of making a whole new routine, you could just add 5 minutes of meditation after you brush your teeth every morning. Or, if you want to be more grateful, you could write down 3 things you're grateful for after dinner each night.
I see. That's so much easier than trying to find a whole new time for these things. It's using something you're already doing without thinking. What are some other ways to make new habits stick?
Well, besides stacking, the Creative Mind podcast talked about making new habits obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying. That's James Clear's 4 laws of behavior change. They're super powerful when you use them all together.
Right, I remember we talked about those before. Can you break them down a bit more and tell me how to use them?
Absolutely. Let's start with make it obvious. This is about being aware and making that new habit visible. Like if you're trying to drink more water, keep a full water bottle on your desk or you can't miss it.
Like setting yourself up so you can't make excuses.
Exactly. Out of sight, out of mind,
Yeah.
Next is make it attractive. Make the habit enjoyable so you actually want to do it. Pair it with something you already love, like listening to music while you work out. Or maybe you treat yourself to a healthy snack or a relaxing bath after you get some work done.
So make it fun.
Yeah. Now for make it easy. This one's about reducing all the friction. Make that habit as simple as you can. If it's too hard or takes forever, you won't stick with it. Like if you want to cook more healthy food at home, prep all your ingredients ahead of time. Or make a weekly meal plan. That way you're not scrambling when you're already tired and hungry.
Oh, that's so smart. I always end up ordering takeout when I don't plan. Okay, so we've covered obvious, attractive, and easy. Now what about making it satisfying?
That's where dopamine comes back in. Our brains love rewards. So when you're building a habit, celebrate your wins, even the small ones. You can use a habit tracker app to see your progress, reward yourself with something you enjoy, that's not food, or just take a moment to appreciate how good it feels to be working towards your goals.
That's so important. Sometimes I get so focused on the end goal, I forget to enjoy the journey. Those 4 laws are great. But I'm curious how other people have used these strategies. Did the Creative Mind podcast give any examples?
They did. They talked about a bunch of successful people who say good habits help them get where they are. Like Stephen King. He's written so many books.
Stephen King, wow. What's his secret? Is he just always inspired?
Well, talent's part of it, but he's also really disciplined. He writes every day, even on holidays, and tries to hit 2,000 words a day. He's been doing that for years. He doesn't wait for inspiration. He just shows up and does the work every single day.
That's wild. It really shows how important consistency is, especially for creative stuff. What other examples did they give?
They talked about Oprah Winfrey. She's another great example of someone who really sticks to her routine. She's famous for her morning routine. Meditation, journaling, exercise, and a healthy breakfast.
That sounds like a great way to start the day. It makes sense why she's so successful.
Right. She's been doing it for years. She says it helps her stay grounded and focused during her crazy busy days. It sets her up for a positive, productive day right from the start.
I love that. It seems like those small habits really do make a huge difference.
They really do. They talked about one more example that I thought was interesting. Jerry Seinfeld. He has this technique he calls don't break the chain.
Don't break the chain sounds interesting. How does that work?
It's really simple, but it works. Seinfeld uses a big calendar and marks a big red X on each day when he finishes his writing goal. The idea is to make a visual chain of X's, and the longer the chain, the more he wants to keep it going.
I get it. It's like a game you play with yourself, a reminder to keep going.
Exactly. And it obviously works for him. These examples show that no matter what you do, successful people use habits to help them.
It's inspiring to see how they've made such incredible lives using habits. It makes me think habits are about more than just getting things done.
You're right. The Creative Mind podcast said, habits are about more than just external achievements. They're about inner peace, well-being, and purpose.
Wow, this deep dive into habits has been amazing. We went from all that science-y stuff to some really inspiring people who used habits to do awesome things. What I'm realizing is that habits are about way more than just getting stuff done.
Yeah, you're totally right. Like that saying we are what we repeatedly do. It's not just about single actions. Our habits really shape who we are.
That makes sense. If we make kindness and generosity part of every day, those become part of who we are. But if we're always procrastinating or being negative, that can hold us back.
Exactly. It all connects. The habits we have shape us, but we get to choose which habits we want. It's like we get to design our lives by choosing our habits.
That's really cool. It means we're not stuck with our old habits. We can make changes by making small changes to what we do every day. And that's what the Creative Mind podcast was all about, right? Understanding habits gives us the tools to break free from those bad patterns.
Exactly. You don't have to change everything overnight. It's about putting in the work, one step at a time.
Yeah.
And as those good habits become part of you, you don't even need willpower anymore.
It's like setting yourself up for success without even thinking about it.
Right. It's like building a strong foundation for a life that's not just productive, but also meaningful and happy. Okay, before we finish up, the Creative Mind podcast gave a few questions to think about. Ready for a little self-reflection?
Definitely. I love thinking about this stuff. What are the questions?
Okay, first, think about 3 habits that have helped you the most. Habits that have made a difference in how you feel, your relationships, your work, the important stuff.
That's a great question. Sometimes we get so focused on changing bad habits that we forget about the good ones.
Right. Okay, now for the other side. What's one bad habit you want to get rid of? And what's one new habit you're excited to start?
Ooh, I like those. They make you really think about what you want to change.
For sure. And lastly, imagine your perfect day. What habits would you have to make that day happen?
I love that question. It makes you use your imagination and figure out what you really want. Sometimes just imagining those habits can be the push we need to change.
Totally. So as you keep growing, remember how powerful habits are. Choose them carefully, stick with the good ones, and let go of the ones that hold you back.
This deep dive into habits has been amazing. I feel like I get it now, how they work and how I can use them to make good changes. It's like we found a secret code to a better version of ourselves all through our habits. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive.